Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to the Athletic HQ here in London. And it is deadline day. It is 4 o'clock. So 7 hours to go until the deadline is reached. And it is a busy old time and things are gathering pace, as you would expect on this deadline day. We've got plenty coming up on this latest show for you, including the latest on Dele Alli's move from Tottenham to Everton. We'll be talking about that in a moment's time. And also plenty more on moves into Tottenham. The other moves that are going on, Newcastle are busy on this deadline day as well. And we're also going to be having maybe a sideways look at deadline day with JJ Bull, Joe Devine from the Tifo football channel as well. So I'm looking forward to that. But let's start with the main man here at the moment on deadline day, and that is David Ornstein, who has sat alongside me. It's good to see with this Pierre-Emerick story, just what's happened, because it's like a sort of a, but it is really, isn't it? What's going on?
No, fact. And the Emerick Aubameyang, he would be to Barcelona, where his father has a home. I don't know if that constitutes as permission formally, but clearly the clubs were in talks trying to come to an agreement.
It's a break.
It is a break. Yeah. He has been training at London Colney on his own, as has been the case for quite a while now, since his very public fall from grace. And he knew, let's not disguise the fact that because the clubs are talking about that move, that would be a good place to be in case an agreement was struck. He wasn't trying to hide that fact. And unfortunately for him and for Barcelona and for Arsenal, I guess too, those talks have collapsed. They've broken down over the coverage of Aubameyang's salary, around £350,000 a week, which we revealed on The Athletic was the main point of contention here. What's the split going to be between the two clubs? Would Aubameyang take a bit of a hit? And clearly they haven't made enough progress to the point at which Arsenal have said enough is enough. You're going to come home and this deal is not going ahead as things stand. If Barcelona find suitable money, you could say even if Arsenal find a replacement, would that change the situation? And then it's back on. It's just gone 4 o'clock. So there's a number of hours to go in this window. My phone's ringing, but that's my wife, not a contact. But I think it sounds.
That shows you what goes on in the mind of David Ornstein. That's fantastic. I like that. It's not transfer, so it's not important.
Yeah, but
carry on.
I don't know what to say to get myself in trouble. But it's a deal that I think now will not be going ahead. Most likely, never say never. And actually, Arsenal's hopes of getting a striker, you could joke, they're getting one in Aubameyang if he comes back and can be reintegrated, but that's a massive if.
So is that it? I mean, I know you've suggested that that means it's not going to happen, but is this almost like I'm at the airport now, I'm going to fly back? Is this almost like a super push on Barcelona to try and find that money down the back of the sofa?
Well, the first person that I spoke to about this story doesn't have a dog in the race, and therefore there's no agenda to be pushed. Okay. And they told me that the deal has collapsed and he's been called back to the UK. So unless that person has been hoodwinked into this game, which makes some sense when you think about it, but the speed at which things happen on this deadline day means it's very unlikely it's in serious jeopardy. But we have seen situations before that have been reignited late on. So never say it's completely off. Actually, I remember reporting on Mikel Arteta's transfer from Everton to Arsenal when at about 10:45, the deal was off. And about 10 minutes later, the people who had left the room in disgust came back into the room and they managed to strike a deal. So this is a bit more complicated. It's in serious jeopardy.
But speaking of people leaving a room in disgust and things like that, if it does now, the direction of travel is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang heading back to England, back to Arsenal. He's been training at London Colney, all that sort of stuff. Do you think that Mikel Arteta will just wait up and go, right, bosh, let's forget about this, let's crack on? Or has there been too much water under the bridge for this to be an amicable reintegration? Or will there be a move elsewhere with other deadlines, beyond today in the UK, being farmed out somewhere else perhaps?
Well, there is a lot of water under the bridge, and I don't know if that damage can be repaired, because Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang was very publicly stripped of the Arsenal captaincy. He was made to train on his own. He wasn't taken on the trip to Dubai that the rest of the squad are on. And Mikel Arteta has clearly taken this very much to heart, what happened. He was late returning from a club-sanctioned trip to France to collect his mother, who had been unwell. And while that seems like not the worst crime in the world, Arsenal had described it as his latest disciplinary breach. And therefore, Arteta wants to set a precedent to the squad. He may look to broach this. I'm sure many at Arsenal would like to repair the damage, but I don't know if Aubameyang would be willing to do that now. There's a lot of imponderables. In terms of could he go somewhere else before a deadline, very unlikely. He didn't want to go to Saudi Arabia because he wanted to keep playing at the highest level. Juventus were in the frame, as we revealed, but Alvaro Morata stayed, and therefore there was no space for him. So it was only really Barcelona or bust. And I think the more likely thing is that this...
Do you need to get that?
Yeah, I probably do, actually.
So
I'm going to run off.
No, that's all good. You go and get that. We got the full gist of what David Ornstein was saying. I mean, subsequent to the transfer window closing in the UK, these are some of the other deadlines around the world for potential deals out of the Premier League. Mexico is February the 1st. Portugal the 2nd. Turkey the 8th. Russia the 22nd of February. China the 28th. So there are potential moves beyond today out of the Premier League. Let's deal with one of the other big deals of this deadline day, and that is Dele Alli heading from Tottenham to Everton. Jack Pitbrook has joined us seamlessly in the studio. Look, he was always going to be, or it looked as if he was always going to be heading out of Tottenham during this window. Are you surprised that Dele, the man that we can see there, is heading to Everton?
I'm not that surprised that it's Everton. Dele obviously has been effectively transfer listed all month. Tottenham have been open to offers for him. The initial understanding is that it would likeliest be a loan because they might struggle to get him away from the club on a permanent deal. But the two clubs who you heard the most speculated about as being potential destinations for Dele were Newcastle United and Everton. I think Everton have been umming and ahhing about possibly signing Dele all month. Clearly, they wanted to wait until they had their new manager confirmed, but Frank Lampard obviously was announced as manager earlier today, and Lampard himself has especially wanted Dele at the club as one of his first major signings. With Newcastle United, it never really materialised. They were never sufficiently interested in Dele Alli to go and pursue him. I think it's fair to say that Jesse Lingard was their priority in a fairly similar role to Dele, and that's why it's ended up being Everton instead of Newcastle.
In terms of what you know of his last year, maybe last 2 years at Tottenham, do you feel that he just simply needs a lease of life to unlock what we saw, a couple of years back and him excelling for both club and country?
Well, I don't know. I don't know exactly what Dele needs. Clearly, anyone can see that he's not the same player as he was when he was burst onto the scene under Mauricio Pochettino, scored all those goals, won PFA Young Footballer of the Year twice, and really looked like a sensational young player and the future of English football. That's quite a long time ago now. Dele didn't really do much under Jose Mourinho and fell out with Mourinho. Didn't really do much under Nuno either, and clearly is not a big part of Antonio Conte's plans either. So I think he definitely needs a move. I hope that the new club, the new manager, will be able to get him back to the levels that he showed under Pochettino. But I don't think anybody can say they know that in itself will be sufficient.
And just one final one. I know a lot of people, when they see a striker come into a club and the manager used to be a striker, oh yeah, he's going to get the best out of him because he knows, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, for example, with Duncan Ferguson at Everton. Frank Lampard working with Dele Alli, that seems to be a good fit in terms of mentorship to say, just do what I did. I know they're not the same player, but they're not that far off in terms of the ideal sort of, arriving late midfielder, making runs, dominating the ball in midfield. They're not far off, are they?
I think that's a really important point. I remember hearing a while ago from a very respected figure within the game, there was a fear that Dele Alli was maybe didn't have an obvious mentor figure. There was no one to give him a bit of guidance on what to do next in your career. How can you go on to the next level? And after the amazing early burst he had under Pochettino. Now, clearly at Tottenham, Dele has, I think, struggled to connect a bit with the last few Tottenham managers. There's been questions about, can he still be the goal-scoring midfielder he was in the past? Nuno tried reinventing him as someone who scrapped in the middle of the pitch. Didn't really work out, but at least he was trying something different. But you're right, Frank Lampard, there are similarities between what Lampard was so good at. And I think if there's one thing that Dele needs to get back into his game at Everton, it's that capacity he used to have to really break his neck, to get on the end of things, making those late runs into the box, popping up with headers and tap-ins. Because like Lampard, he does have an amazing kind of nose for goal and sense of where the ball is going to bounce and what position he ought to be taking up in the box. So if Lampard can somehow conjure that out of him again and get him to start making those runs again, then maybe he will revitalise Dele and turn him into the player he used to be.
Yeah, we shall see. It's an interesting one. I know a lot of people are looking at it and going, oh, is that the right move? Is that the right move? But fingers crossed for him on a human level, it does work out. Jack, thank you very much indeed. We may well see you a little bit later on, depending on what pans out. Right, if you head off, and then we will... Oh, it is a busy Athletic HQ today, because we have plenty of guests coming and going. James Horncastle is here straight in, and obviously, you have extensive knowledge of Serie A, and we wanted to just sort of get your take. We're talking about outgoings at Tottenham with Dele Alli, on the new boys that are coming in, who are good friends with the sporting director at Tottenham. Just tell us about first Kulusevski. And then we can move on to Betancourt afterwards. Kulusevski, what is he gonna bring?
Well, some inventiveness, some drive as well. He was the Serie A Young Player of the Year a couple of years ago. That's why Fabio Paratici, who's now the managing director of football at Tottenham, bought him for Juventus. And if you look at it over the last 2 years, he's been prepared to pay combined 80 million to sign him. I think it was 35 plus 9 at Juventus. Now it's 40 at Tottenham. Really, when his career hasn't kicked on since he left Parma, where he was on loan from Atalanta to go to Juventus. And there's no doubt he's a very talented player, can play across the forward line, probably was at his best playing on the right, the 4-3-3 with Andreas Cornelius and Jovinho. I think what's really curious about this one is Conte wanted him to sign for Inter when he was in his first season there. But from what I could gather, one of the things that led Kulusevski to choose Juventus was, where do I fit in a 3-5-2? When you've got Lautaro Martinez and you've got Romelu Lukaku. And I know Spurs have been playing a bit more of a 3-4-3 this year under Conte, but I'm still curious to see where he would fit into Conte's system.
I guess he's been given some sort of assurance from both Conte and Paratici.
Yeah,
Paratici. I always get the what's the
Paratici.
Paratici.
There you go.
Those sort of assurances. He, it's like, come on, we'll let's make this happen, because it hasn't quite worked out yet.
Absolutely, yeah. He knows that Paratici is a big fan of his. In some respects, Paratici signing him, he got promoted at Juventus. Did Paratici on the back of the Ronaldo deal, but when his kind of more senior kind of part, Beppe Marotta, was moved on and became the chief executive of Juventus, of Inter, this was seen as beating his old man to Kulusevski was seen as a big win from Paratici. So he clearly believes in him. Conte clearly believes in him. And this is someone who was considered, along with Alexander Isak, the most exciting player to come up through the ranks in Sweden for quite some time. So I think he's definitely got the athleticism to play in the Premier League. And he's someone who, on his day, remember that year at Parma where he was playing in a team that was fighting against relegation and comfortably stayed up because of the goals that he scored and set up for them. they were then relegated when he left. They couldn't replace him, and I think, in some respects, Conte, I think, will move Tottenham to play, slightly deeper than the other top sides in the Premier League, much deeper than, say, Liverpool, Chelsea, for example. He'll want to hit teams on the counter-attack, and I think Kulusevski is a player who can help Tottenham do that.
And in terms of the integration and the importance of Bentancur, is that something that is that another essential sort of gap that is being plugged in that Tottenham lineup, in your opinion?
I think when Conte got the job, a lot of people were looking at Spurs' squad and saying, okay, who's the Pirlo figure in that team? Who's the Brozovic figure? So the deep line playmaker. And I still don't think they've answered that question. Højbjerg kind of does it. Bentancur can't do it. I think one of the things that Juventus fans kind of were critical of him, and more generally the team's recruitment strategy in the midfield, was, hang on, how are you replacing Pirlo? How are you replacing Pjanic? And Bentancur was expected to do something he couldn't do, which was to play in front of the defence, build up play, get their passing rhythm going. Instead, he's a ball winner. And again, I think has the dynamism and the athleticism to get right into the Premier League. But I think it more signals that maybe Spurs will continue playing two in midfield, Højbjerg and the Bentancur, or Bentancur and the Skip, rather than moving to a midfield three. I think they'll probably go in for another midfielder again in the summer. They were already trying to get Frank Kessie from AC Milan, last summer, this winter. I imagine they'll try and get him on as a free agent at the end of this season. But I think Bentancur, he's not going to be a player who gets a lot of people excited, but he'll do a lot of the dirty work that will allow Spurs' flair players to do their best work. And certainly having a lot of blue-collar players in the Conte team, he's always valued and valued players like that. So, for someone who's 24, has played in the Copa Libertadores for Boca, has been moved to Juventus, established himself in the first team, which played Champions League football for 3 years. That takes a lot of character. He's played in two pressure cookers with a lot of expectation on him. So I don't think moving to the Premier League or moving to Tottenham will necessarily phase a player like Rodrigo Bentancur.
I was just going to ask you about Aaron Ramsey. I'll do that in a moment's time. But a lot of people, when they were talking about Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang leaving Arsenal, they were thinking Vlahovic is going to come in. He was heavily linked with Arsenal. He's obviously now at Juventus. How is that sort of being seen in terms of changing what Juve can do now?
Well, I think it goes to show that Juventus still have great appeal, because there was competition from Premier League teams to sign Vlahovic in January. Juventus weren't expected to have the finance in place to do this deal now. I think it's a record January transfer signing in Italy. I think it's the biggest one of the window so far in Europe's top 5 leagues. And ultimately it came down to the player wanting to go to Juventus. And I think one of the frustrations for Fiorentina, who came over to London in October to hold talks with Premier League teams and hopefully start an auction, so that the player and his entourage just weren't interested in speaking to anyone. And I think that led to the suspicion that they were already talking to Juventus, and this was kind of put in place. And ultimately, Juventus needed a player like this. They haven't been scoring a lot of goals, they haven't been creating a lot of chances. They're not in the top 4 at the moment. It's essential for them to make top 4. And they've got a player who can do that. But this feels like Juventus are at a new dawn. Cristiano Ronaldo very much left them, in the last days of the summer transfer window. And whilst they got Moise Kean back from Everton, there was a feeling that they still didn't really replace him. Now they've done that, and they've, I think, been able to reshape their midfield as well, with Dennis Zakaria coming in from Borussia Mönchengladbach. And that's more in line, I think, with what Allegri wants to see the team. So I think a lot of people don't expect Juventus, obviously, to challenge for the title because they're too far back from Inter. But they feel that they will definitely be in the Champions League. And now all of a sudden, the likes of Milan, Napoli and Atalanta are looking over their shoulders, and they know Juventus are coming. And then I think come the summer, there's going to be more business done by Juventus and more expectation that the last 18 months where they lost their title have been a bit of a blip.
One of the great things about The Athletic is that often you have these tag team articles where you're working with people, on something. For example, we'll be working on something regarding, Roy Hodgson's time in Udinese or whatever it has been with the Italy connections with Watford and Serie A, obviously. One that I wasn't expecting, and Jordan Campbell is currently waiting in the wings to speak to us about Aaron Ramsey heading from Juventus to Rangers. I didn't predict that one. First of all, before we bring Jordan in, just your quick take on that move for Aaron Ramsey away from Juve and whether it worked, whether it didn't.
Well, I think it makes Juventus's transfer window an A+. And I don't see that to be disparaging to Aaron Ramsey.
How can you say that?
Well, because he got the best deal that a free agent could get. I mean, a lot's been made of how much he gets paid, and that's made it very difficult for Juventus to move him to reshape their midfield. Because, ultimately over the last 2.5 years, he has had struggles with injury. I think mitigating circumstances as well, in that there's been a lot of churn at Juventus in that time, which hasn't made it easy for him. But, his wages have been a millstone, I think, around Juventus. And I think going into deadline day, there was still a lot of pessimism that they wouldn't be able to find a solution to this. That clubs like Burnley didn't appeal to Ramsey, and it was about finding a club who did, and ultimately they have with Rangers. But it's going to be very interesting to see who is the true Aaron Ramsey. Is it the one that we see for Wales, who still plays 90 minutes and scores goals and is very decisive, or is it the one we've seen at Juventus or not seen at Juventus, who's often been left out squads, not for a lack of professionalism, but because he's either been injured or recovering. Recently had COVID as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this works out, whether Rangers take the option to sign him on a permanent basis in the summer, or whether he comes back to Juventus and Juventus have to face the situation again, which is he's still a player who's got 18 months of a very, very lucrative contract with them.
Will the real Aaron Ramsey please stand up? We wait to see what happens to Aaron Ramsey. Well, James Horncastle, will you please stand up?
I will.
Played by Jordan Campbell. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Great to have you on board once again on this Athletic Deadline Day special. Jordan Campbell is here, our Rangers reporter. How are you?
Yeah, very excited. Yeah,
I'm sure you are. I mean, we've had James's take on it from Juve side of things. Just tell us about the excitement from the Rangers side of things in getting this deal done, because it hasn't been bubbling for a long time, has it?
No, I think it's sort of a shock for everyone. Came out of the blue. A name like Aaron Ramsey, with his profile having been at Arsenal and Juventus, that's the sort of profile of player that you think is out with the reach of Rangers or Celtic nowadays. But it is a bit. It seems like a throwback to the 1990s, where I was talking to someone earlier and they're saying this is the biggest signing Rangers have made since Gaza. That's how big it is, because you can go through the players they brought through, De Boer, Nico Kranjčar, Bruno Alves, but none of them have quite, at club level or within the UK anyway, got the same reputation as Aaron Ramsey has. So obviously what James is saying is that, Rangers wouldn't be getting Aaron Ramsey if he was still at his peak, playing week in, week out for Arsenal and Juventus. But I think to attract a player of that calibre and with his CV is a massive coup for Rangers. I think it shocked everybody, because I think everyone was waiting on Rangers going to make a statement in this January transfer window. The gap's been cut to 2 points. It's a massive game on Wednesday against Celtic. And we all know how important the Champions League money is. Whoever wins the league this year, it's essentially a straight shootout, straight to the Champions League. And that 40 million revenue is transformative for a club like Rangers. That's his last stepping stone in terms of their recovery the last 10 years. So if Aaron Ramsey scores the goals and produces the assists and can play 20-odd games to the end of the season and wins them the league, then I think everybody will look back on that as a masterstroke.
I was just trying to work out if there was any sort of old school Arsenal links that have somehow joined up with Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, knows him from then and blah, blah, blah. I don't know.
Philippe Senderos, I don't know if he comes in it, but, maybe that's one to forget, maybe. Yeah.
But the point of him coming to play for Giovanni Van Bronckhorst it's obviously, it shows that there is that lure. We've seen Steven Gerrard be able to do it, having moved from Rangers to Aston Villa and do it.
Yeah.
That's what comes when you bring in a manager that has a bit of sort of cachet to him as well.
I think that's true. You've seen it with Jermaine Defoe as well when he came to Rangers, albeit, Jermaine Defoe was already in the twilight of his career, whereas Aaron Ramsey's only 31, so there's no reason to say that Aaron Ramsey is well past his peak and he can't come up to Scotland and really showcase just how good he is at that level. I think the big thing will be, can he stay fit? Can Rangers manage his body? And can they get a level output that justifies the contribution they're going to have to make to get him here? Because, signing Aaron Ramsey is one thing, but are you going to get him fit every game? I think with Diallo coming in on the right wing, that was a good addition, because that was the position they really needed. And in midfield, they already had 8 options, but with Juninho Bacuna going out, there was that sort of gap for another attacking midfielder, because they've not really got anyone who's similar to Scott Arfield. And at 33 now, he's retired for international duty. He's had some injury problems. So I'm not saying Aaron Ramsey's going to be a rotation option, but, Aaron Ramsey can come in and improve the first team. And I think for the last 5 windows, Rangers haven't really improved the starting 11, just because they've over-invested at the start of Gerrard's tenure. And they've basically been bringing in squad fillers. So I think this is a real statement, and that's the sort of thing that will completely change the mood from at the weekend, when everything was doom and gloom after drawing with Ross County, to now, being on top of the world with a bit of glamour arriving in Glasgow.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, Jordan, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show. If anything else happens, obviously do pop back in. It is busy, as I mentioned. Just to let you know, there are, in terms of the various transfer deadlines around Europe, in terms of their closure, we know in the Premier League in England, it is an 11 o'clock deadline. These are all UK times. It's the same for the EFL as well. In Scotland, it's actually midnight. Bundesliga closes at 5 o'clock. Serie A closes at 7 o'clock. And La Liga is at 11 o'clock. And Ligue 1 is at 11 o'clock as well. Seamlessly, Adam Crafton is now here on the sofa.
Yeah, I wasn't even invited. I just turned up.
just thought you heard so much was going on, so you thought you'd just pop in and say hello. So tell me, I think he's on our little carousel here. Ousmane Dembele. What is going on with him? Where is he due to go? And I'm confused by his career path. It seems to have not obviously gone to plan since he left.
I think we're going to talk about Jesse Lingard after that.
Yeah.
But with Dembele, look, his contract's up in the summer at Barcelona. He needs a suitor for the summer. I think today it's looking difficult. PSG looked at him, very difficult with financial fair play for them to make that work. There's also, I think it may have been mentioned to Arsenal at some point in this month, but they don't seem to be wanting to do that deal. Chelsea's one that's come up, but it doesn't look at the moment like anything's likely to happen, in before the end of this window. And obviously he's still a Barcelona player, but Barcelona don't really seem to want him.
But is this simply just Barcelona not knowing what to do with him? Can they not find a way of utilizing him, or do they just think that we ultimately have made a mistake in this signing?
Well, they spent a huge amount of money on him, like they did on Philippe Coutinho, and it's impossible to argue that once they sold Neymar, which is where a lot of this started in, was it 2017 or 18, that was a huge decision that Barcelona took, and the subsequent reinvestment of that money is like a how-to manual in how to not recover from losing one of your best players. And players like Dembele, Coutinho, there's so many that they've signed over the last 4 or 5 years that have been real failures in terms of process of recruitment, scouting, relationships with agents, development of all of those themes. And unfortunately, with Ousmane Dembele, he's had injuries. I think there's been concerns about attitude at certain points as well. But ultimately, he's just not done it on the pitch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Let's deal with Jesse Lingard then. And he is on the move seemingly, and we're expecting a deal to happen. What's your current understanding of how it is going to pan out over the next however many hours it is, 5.5 or so?
Yeah, it's one of the real stories of the window is where will Jesse go? Where will Jesse Lingard be allowed to go? The position today is that Newcastle have had an interest right from the start of the window. They'd like to do a move. West Ham have had an interest, obviously, since last year. He was on loan there for the second half of the season. Tottenham have also had a look. I think they've been knocked back previously this month because United traditionally don't like to sell to rivals for where they are in the table. And unfortunately for Manchester United at the moment, they're in a position where both Tottenham and West Ham are rivals for the top 4. So I think there's a reluctance to do business with direct rivals, but they also view Newcastle as a future rival, right? So I think there's a lot of clubs in the Premier League at the moment who are half thinking, what can we do to slow that development of the Newcastle project? And if we, can we delay that by 18 months by, if they don't stay up and then they have to have a year in the Championship, then you have to have the whole rebuilding project takes a bit longer. I think that's probably part of the thinking, not just from Manchester United, but from numerous clubs who are being approached by Newcastle in the Premier League. What's changing is that, he has been to see Ralph Rangnick, the Manchester United interim manager. He says, I want to go and compete for my place in the England squad, World Cup this year. I need to play football. And, I think Rangnick is sympathetic to that. The problem at the moment is, United haven't been able to do a deal yet with either Newcastle or West Ham, and it's one that's going to go late in the day. I think, the other consideration is Man United have lost players this month. They've lost Amad Diallo, Anthony Martial. Looks like Donny van der Beek will be going to Everton. Of course, Mason Greenwood's unavailable as well. So it leaves United a little bit short in those creative positions when you think you've got Marcus Rashford, who's been in and out of form, Cristiano Ronaldo, Jadon Sancho, who's not hit form yet at all, Anthony Elanga, and Edinson Cavani, whose fitness is unreliable. So there might be part of the thinking at United just how much, maybe we need Jesse Lingard because we're across 3 tournaments for the rest of the season.
So there's a lot to be decided. Either he's being used as a pawn in a broader political of wrangle with rivals in the top 4, or delaying Newcastle's progression to a superpower.
I don't think it's that cynical, as in United thinking.
Come into the thinking.
I'm sure it would. Do we want to? United might be thinking we've already got 5 rivals for this established big 6, and you've got West Ham coming into that, and clubs like Villa and Wolves and Watford one day.
Who knows what's going to happen with Roy Hodgson and Watford? Yeah,
exactly. So you've got all those different clubs that are already competing at the top of European football. Manchester United's revenue has been severely hit by COVID over the last couple of years. The amount that they all need to, reinvest into the squad in order to keep pace, as you have clubs like PSG and City and Newcastle and Chelsea spending over the next couple of years, I'm sure it would be a consideration. How fast do we allow Newcastle to compete with us? But as we've seen this window, when the money's there on the table, clubs doesn't tend to take it in the end. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Adam, thank you very much for coming on, telling us about Dembele, telling us about Lingard. You can head off. That is all good. Thank you. So here we are on this deadline day. My simple maths earlier on got a bit confused because it was around about a half hour. I'm not very good at half hours. And it is going to be 6.5 hours until the deadline is at 11 o'clock. Quick maths. Just to remind you, if you're not yet a subscriber to The Athletic, you can head on to theathletic.com/deadline day, and you'll be able to pick up a real deal on this deadline day because it is a 50% discount on a new subscription. Now, we do plenty here on The Athletic in terms of hard news, serious news, breaking news, in-depth analysis, interviews, and that is also done by Tifo, who I'm sure you are very familiar with. But they also do have a sideways glance at football, and part of their very, very strong lineup is Mr. JJ Bull, who now joins us. How are you?
The strongest of all the people, as I would say.
The strongest. You are the strongest member.
I say so.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. I've worked on some interesting Tifo projects.
Yes.
with JJ, with Joe, Seb, and the team. And we just wanted to sort of bring one of the strands of Tifo where, the Athletic and Tifo almost combine. I didn't mention Alex as well. Alex, of course, how could I forget? One of those...
Don and Sol as well.
Don and Sol, yeah. There's a whole massive team behind the scenes as well. Have I forgotten anyone else? Do you want to...
Alice, Henry.
Alice, yes. Anyone? Henry, yeah. Anyone?
Phil, all the illustrators. Marco.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, everyone, we're all together. In terms of one of the
Craig as well.
Craig as well. Thank you. It's good that we're doing a list of names leading into this feature that we are going to eventually get to, if I can actually get my words out, which is that sensible transfers has been running throughout this January transfer window. What signing would be good for your club? Now, we have obviously seen a lot of players already realise their transfers, some from Europe, some domestically, and we wanted to just sort of get your take on some of these deals that have gone through. Okay, so I'm going to give you a list of names, and you can tell me whether they are sensible or unsensible. Is unsensible the opposite of sensible? It is unsensible.
It's definitely the word. Yeah.
It's not insensible. That's insensitive. Unsensible. Okay, so here we go. Unsensible or sensible? Luis Diaz into Liverpool.
So that's a very sensible transfer.
Yeah. Why? That's all going to be the follow-up to every.
Oh, I didn't realise you wanted more than the yes or no.
Yeah.
Okay, why? It seems like a nice boy.
Yeah.
He it's 12. I've written some notes that I wrote them
Brilliant
in handwriting.
Yeah,
because you can do that on technology now.
Yeah,
he scored 14 goals in 18 games. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think Sadio Mane's not been amazing in this last little while. He's still very good, obviously. Yeah. But Diaz will be signed to be either not his replacement, but to give a lot of competition for that place. Because at the moment, you've got players like Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. So he's left-sided forwards. That's what you'd be doing winger. You get challenged for places with Oxlade-Chamberlain and Divock Origi, who still exists, but not in a Liverpool first-team sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he does exist.
He's definitely still in existence.
He's a real man.
Yeah, he still exists.
But yeah, so very, very sensible, very transfer. Much money, 37 million?
Yes, there or thereabouts.
It's good.
Okay, so you're happy with that one?
Yeah.
Now,
do you think his amount value is meant to be something like 60 or 70?
Yeah.
And they snuck in through that back door to get him away from...
Because he was going to be available in the summer for that amount, and it was, if you can buy him now for X amount.
And Porto want the money, don't they?
Yeah, Porto for the money. Okay, so let's deal with our next one. So we've had one sensible. Now, Wout Weghorst is now at Burnley. And did you see the announcement video?
Yes, but why don't you tell me what happened to make sure everyone else at home knows what it's like?
Very good. That Basil exposition, that's very good. So basically he was announced, I'm sure you've seen it online, with the old school Jurassic Park video, because he is a very tall man and very powerful and loud and likes to roar. They had the video with the little ripples in the glass, and then they showed him scoring a goal, which was really entertaining. Go and watch it. It's more entertaining than me talking about it. In terms of how you feel about him as a signing, do you think the Dutchman is sensible or unsensible?
Do I think the Dutchman is sensible or unsensible? I think it's very sensible in that they've essentially signed someone who's supposed to be an upgrade on Chris Wood. Mm-hmm. He's 29. So ideally, you want strikers to be that age, but then you think, you buy them at that age, is that bad?
Yeah. You want to have seen them at 27, 28 and 29.
26.
At 26 as well.
Sometimes 25.
Yeah.
But there's more ages. 30. So I think Weghorst? How do you want to say it?
Weghorst, yeah.
Weghorst. High pressures. If you look at his FB ref.
Yeah.
High pressures. It means he does a lot of defensive work, which is good. Also, he's a tall lad, so he can head the ball. He's quite good at his numbers show that he's good for assists, which I think is mostly going to be because of knockdowns. Mm-hmm. And I say that as someone who's looked at his FB ref, but not a lot of real life footage. But you can probably just guess that's what he's like because he's tall.
Well, the first game that he will play, if selected and if fit, will be against Watford. So that will be a festival of football, and you'll be able to see him.
I should think so, yes.
Yeah, going head to head. And they also, Burnley have Maxwell Cornet back, so it'll be a good combination between those two.
And they started signing players who weren't just from Britain or Ireland. They signed players who are from abroad.
Yeah, which is good.
Opening their horizons.
Quite. We will see how they get on for the remainder of this season in the Premier League. Right, next few. Donny van de Beek, working well with Frank Lampard.
Is this one confirmed? Is it gone through yet?
It's on the way. I don't think there's any question that it isn't going to go through.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm questioning it now.
Okay, fine.
I think Donny van de Beek is a lovely player and was excellent at Ajax, but I think he suits a very particular kind of football where it's positional play and a certain kind of tempo of build-up, and where he's allowed to get into the box. He could play as a 6 because he can drop deep to receive the ball, but he's actually more of an 8 or a 10. And he likes to get beyond the striker. Ajax, he'd often finish off a move, or he'd provide the final ball. You'd find him often on the right wing, left wing, just dropping in behind players, like a free role. But you tend to limit those free roles to players who are the best player on the team, like Bruno Fernandes or something at Man United. And Van de Beek hasn't shown that he's that. But at Everton, he would probably be one of their better players. But then also, I just don't know if he's suited to the Premier League. So it's really difficult. I think Van de Beek's kind of player who is Champions League quality, and he's played a lot. Most of his games for United were in the Champions League because he suits that, because it's a slightly slower pace, right, in the Premier League. You get more time on the ball, you don't have to rely on strength so much. It's more about skill, positioning, awareness of your surroundings. And so if you put him in, there's a weird noise, you hear that?
It was slightly different pitch,
I was trying to do a voice.
It was good.
Yeah, I thought you'd like it.
It was good.
I'll do it again later.
Okay.
So I think if you were, Everton is just going to be more Premier League stuff. Everton are pretty garbage this year. They don't really have a good team going on. Lampard's going to have to adjust to how they want to play. Judging by how his Chelsea team played, not that it'd be exactly the same, but I'd imagine it'd be similar sort of systems he'd be using. I don't know if Van de Beek's shown enough that he'd be able to play like that. He'd suit for me going somewhere like Spain, where the league would just be. He'd be perfect in Spain. That's what I think of Van de Beek. So okay. I think I really like Van de Beek as a player, and maybe as a man. But I think we'll say this is what's between sensible and unsensible.
There isn't one for the purposes of this show.
Let's say sensible.
Oh, you're going sensible. Okay. If I was to say to you, he's going to be playing with Abdoulaye Doucouré as the 6.
Yeah.
And he's going to be playing as an 8 or a 10 with Dele Alli.
It's then nuts. Doucouré's box to box as well.
Yeah, but I think he prefers playing as a 6.
But he's got such an engine on him that he can get.
He does.
This is
right. I'm going to say that you're saying that this is unsensible.
Lampard's Chelsea had it was a bit chaotic, right? And the idea is that the less kind of structure you have, the more you can tear people apart, and it's less predictable and it's more fun. That makes kind of sense. But if you've got Dele Alli and Donny van de Beek playing the same role with Doucouré wanting to do the same thing, but just having to hold back, I think got like Andre Gomez as well.
Yeah,
he's all right. Who else is there? Fabian Delph? Nah,
I think he's injured as well. And Doucouré is currently injured too. Anyway, we digress. So you're saying you boiled this one down as sensible or unsensible?
I'm going to say I don't like it.
Don't like it. Good. So we've had 2 sensibles, 1 unsensible. Aaron Ramsey in a sentence to Rangers.
In a sentence?
Yeah.
If the amount of money he's on at Juventus and Rangers are able to get him, I'm pretty sure his weekly wage would be more than Aberdeen's entire budget.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't like it.
You don't like it because you're Aberdeen leanings?
Or you don't like as a journalist, I'm very neutral.
Of course.
But as the person that I am, I hate it.
Fine. Okay.
I can't be more clear than that.
But is it sensible?
For Ramsey, yes. Because
for Rangers?
Where are they getting all this money from?
Well, maybe it's an opportunity. It's a next step. They can.
He's had his injury problems, right? Maybe he's not the player he was a while ago. Is he 31 now? He still can play at top level, not top. Somewhere in the
the gap between sensible and unsensible.
Yes.
That's where we're playing. Yeah,
that's what we're talking about, right? So Rangers should win the league. It's them or Celtic usually. I don't know if you've ever seen the Scottish League. Sometimes you can tell early. Ramsey going in there would be great if they get him on a really good amount of money. Even 40 grand's quite a lot for a team like Rangers, who they're still in Europe, right? So he gets to play in Europe probably for at least 1 or 2 more games. That'll be good for him. If he's not even cup tied, I don't know. They should win the other 2 cups that they're in just now. I think they're still in the Scottish Cup. More likely, because again, in Scotland, the cups tend to be won by 1 of 2 teams. So that'll help. But for the rest of the league, it's good to have a player like Ramsey in there. But what are you going to It's not really fair.
It's not fair.
Yeah.
But is it sensible or unsensible?
Oh, it's sensible.
Sensible, thank you.
Yeah.
Right, and Kulusevski into Tottenham from Juve.
I don't know.
You don't know. No. Genuinely,
He's got one goal. He played 5 starts and 15 league sub appearances this season.
Yeah. So he's not, in terms, if you were to rank it in making a big difference in terms of making a sensible acquisition, a gap that Tottenham needed to fill, would you say Kulusevski into Tottenham is a sensible or unsensible transfer? Does it jump out as you as being particularly sensible?
I'm going to say because Conte will have worked with him, I think, at Juve. I would imagine, unless he arrived after Conte was there, it's probably a sensible transfer. I don't remember when Kulusevski, that's not even his name, signed for Juventus, so I can't remember whether Conte's in there. I'm going to say it's sensible because Conte is better at football things than me, and I think he would know more. And so if he wants to sign it, I mean, I think he would sign anyone now, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
because they just want to get players in. So I think, and Spurs need players because they're very medium. So Kulusevski's probably a sensible transfer. He's very highly rated, bit of a wonder kid.
He is.
Yeah.
He won Young Player of the Year, James Horncastle was saying.
Well, his personal award, James Horncastle.
James Horncastle's personal Young Player of the Year award.
Prestigious award.
He's that powerful that he does deserve to give out these awards.
Well, he does, yeah.
He does. Okay, JJ, it's been an absolute delight to have you on the show. Captain Sensible or Unsensible, it's been great to have you on board.
Yeah.
I think that is a perfect way to end this episode. Thank you very much, JJ. Off you go. We are broadcasting from the Tifo studio here at the Athletic HQ, and they've kindly handed it over. But they did insist that we had to include JJ Bull on the show as part of the deal. It was a loan with an obligation to buy sort of deal that we did with Tifo for today. We are going to have plenty more for you. Bye, JJ. Thanks very much. In terms of the serious analysis of these deadline day deals, which you can catch on The Athletic right now. Remember, do go to theathletic.com/deadline day, and you will be able to get a 50% discount on your subscription. And it has been now announced that Tottenham's deal, as we were mentioning, we've discussed with James Horncastle on this update of Kulusevski and Bentancur. Bentancur has been agreed on loan. That has been now fully completed. That's just the latest update on our transfer blog, which is there. We've talked about Dele Alli heading to Everton, and also another random one, and we're keeping you posted on all different ones here. Jean-Philippe Mateta, his loan has been converted to a permanent deal. And just finally, I know that we are sort of fighting for eyeballs today on this deadline day because there is some quite key political news going on, as I'm sure you are very much aware if you're watching in the UK. And we have to just give a little hat tip to John McGinn, the Aston Villa midfielder. And that made it onto our transfer blog that Boris Johnson is obviously under pressure at the moment. And he does say 8 hours to get Boris a club. So well done to John McGinn for perfectly fusing deadline day and the political shenanigans which are going on in Parliament as we speak as well. We will be back for our next update on this deadline day here at the Athletic HQ at 7 o'clock, when there will be 4 hours to go until the deadline is reached at 11 o'clock. So we've got shows at 7 o'clock and then at 10:30 as well, when we will take you all the way through the deadline. But keep in touch on the transfer live updates online. And obviously you've got all your features, your interviews, and your deeper analysis as well on the site and the app too. We'll be back at 7 o'clock. Take care, everyone.